Hey. Startled, I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. Hello, Michael. Sorry to bother you, but you're going to be late. On the day of this important presentation. That's some nerve you've got. The department head, Michael, was clearly furious. I'm well aware of the presentation, but there's someone injured right in front of me. I believe that it's only natural to help someone who's injured in front of you, even if you're not a doctor. I couldn't just leave the injured person behind. Don't think that excuse will fly, you incompetent. Don't bother coming in ever again. You are fired. It's my fault, but thank you so much. I've arranged for a car, so please get in. It's fine, but what do you mean by a car? Just as I muttered that, a black luxury car pulled up to the curb. Daniel, please come this way. At her urging, I got into a luxury car for the first time in my life. The car took off, leaving me clueless, and arrived at the company I work for. The same company I had just been fired from. My name is Daniel. I'm a 50-something-year-old salaryman. I used to work in sales at a small-scale company, but a few years ago, I changed jobs and now work at a medium-sized company. After graduating from a local university, I got a job in sales at a subsidiary focused on serving the local community. However, due to disagreements with the CEO, I decided to change jobs. Being a subsidiary focused on the local community meant that we were caught between our parent company and our clients. We had to generate profits or we could easily be shut down. I understand that a certain level of profit is necessary for the company's survival, but I couldn't follow the president's profit-first management style that disregards customers, leading me to decide to resign. Daniel, are you quitting? I was asked this by a customer I had been visiting for over 10 years, right at their doorstep. Yes, I'm leaving at the end of March. I'll make sure everything is properly handed over, so please don't worry. This customer had been a loyal client even before I joined a company. It's going to be lonely without you. Thank you for everything up till now. Daniel, that's my line. We laughed together. Are you going to start your own business? No, a mere salesman like me starting a business. Unthinkable. Some people of our age might leverage their experience to start their own businesses. However, I chose to leave the place I had worked for many years for a medium-sized company where I thought I could excel in sales more. Oh, are you moving far away? That's a shame. The nature of the sales work will be the same, but the products offered will be different. While it's gratifying that she would buy products from my new company out of loyalty to me, they wouldn't suit this particular customer. It's still going to be cold for a while, so please take care of yourself. Daniel, thank you so much. I said my final goodbyes to the customer and left their house. Leaving customers I had served for many years felt sad, but it was unavoidable. Thus, I left the subsidiary I had worked at for over 10 years. However, being a salesman at a subsidiary and at a medium-sized company turned out to be quite different. After clashing with the CEO at my previous company, I had hoped to avoid any more interpersonal conflicts, but life doesn't always go as planned. Hey, Daniel, isn't this customer data ready yet? The one calling me in a displeased tone was Michael. He's the head of the sales department here. He's about the same age as me, but because of his past achievements, he has an arrogant attitude towards his subordinates, making him unpopular with people from other departments who tend to keep their distance. However, given his position as department head and having connections in HR, everyone finds themselves in a dilemma, unable to confront him directly. In a medium-sized company, you interact with many customers and business partners, but the time you can spend with each customer is far less than at my previous company. Selling products isn't the only job of a salesperson. The content of what we recommend changes based on what customers want, which we understand through daily conversations. I knew this, but I was still surprised by the difference in emphasis once I started working. It was a path chosen for my own skill improvement, but the business was dizzying. Moreover, having caught my boss's eye made my days even more challenging. I'm terribly sorry. I received a call from a client yesterday and haven't finished yet. Even an intern could get this simple task done quickly, you know. I was grumbled at with sarcasm. Such sarcasm was a daily routine. And hey, is the material for the next presentation ready? Michael continued with a frown. Yes, I've sent it by email. Haven't you seen it? It was the document I had stayed late to finish yesterday. I'm asking if you've printed and compiled it, not emailed it. Me? Was I supposed to? Who else would it be? He approached me aggressively. Lately, tasks that I usually wouldn't have to do somehow end up being my responsibility. Just as I was about to object, I'm sorry, I forgot. Matthew, an intern in our department, started to print in a panic. But Michael's anger didn't subside, glaring at both me and Matthew. Isn't this because your guidance is lacking, Daniel? I'm very sorry. Matthew looked like he was about to cry, worried that I was getting scolded because of him. Seeing his expression, Michael left with an unnecessary remark. Hurry up, incompetent. I felt sorry for Matthew getting scolded because of me. No, it's clearly my mistake, yet you're getting blamed. I'm sorry. Matthew was downcast. It can't be helped. You had to organize the customer data as well. Thank you, but why is it always you who? Indeed, Michael always seemed to target me. He probably looked down on a new, insignificant salesman like me. Even with his achievements, he would probably be in the middle of the company hierarchy. It's not uncommon for complaints about Michael to come from other departments or customers. I wonder if I'm just an outlet for his stress, I thought, as I continued to be overwhelmed by the increasing daily workload. Yesterday, I was running around preparing for the presentation, and I fell asleep as soon as I got home. The next morning, the alarm rang, and I hurriedly took a shower and left the house. I could make it to work on time as I ran. Reaching the bus stop and panting from the effort, suddenly I heard a sharp breaking sound. A man and a woman were lying on the sidewalk. It seemed to be a young man, probably a student on a bicycle, and a young woman. They might have collided. I rushed over in a panic. Are you all right? The man quickly got up and responded when I called out. The woman, however, didn't react. She seemed unharmed at first glance, but as I continued to talk to her, she moved slightly. I checked her pulse and breathing briefly. They seemed normal. But she might have hit her head, so it would be best to go to the hospital immediately. Excuse me, is she all right? I couldn't avoid her in time. The anxious-looking male student asked me. Are you injured at all? Yes, I'm fine. That's good. This lady seems to be all right too, but... As I was speaking, the woman slowly opened her eyes. Ouch. Are you okay? Do you feel any discomfort? Are your hands or feet numb? I don't think there's any numbness. I'm fine. The woman answered while opening and closing her hands repeatedly. There don't seem to be any major injuries, but you might have hit your head. It might be best to go to a hospital. Oh, right, the hospital. What should I do? There's a big hospital just a little way from here. If you'd like, I can. I stopped mid-sentence when I realized I wouldn't make it to work on time if this continued. Excuse me, may I make a quick call to my workplace? After addressing them, I hurriedly made a call. I'm sorry, this is Daniel. I've come across an accident between a cyclist and a pedestrian and will be slightly delayed. As I relayed this to a colleague over the phone, I could hear Michael's voice in the background. I'm sorry, Michael is. Oh? It seemed like my colleague was abruptly cut off as Michael's voice got closer. Hey. Startled, I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. Hello, Michael. Sorry to bother you, but you're going to be late. On the day of an important presentation. That's some nerve you've got. Michael was clearly furious. I'm well aware of the presentation, but there's someone injured right in front of me. I believe that it's only natural to help someone who's injured in front of you, even if you're not a doctor. I couldn't just leave the injured person behind. Don't think that excuse will fly. Incompetent Daniel. You might as well never come to the office again. You are fired. Michael raised his voice. I was taken aback by his words. That can't be. Please wait a moment. I never imagined I would be fired. I was in a panic. It's actually a good timing since HR was telling me to cut down on the sales staff. You don't have to come in from next month. But Michael, wait, let me explain at least. I wanted to at least explain my side, but Michael wasn't willing to listen. I don't have time for this. Just disappear already. With that, Michael hung up forcefully. Just like that, I was fired from the company. Are you okay? The woman looked at me with concern. It seemed Michael's loud yelling was audible to her as well. Well, I'm used to it. I laughed weakly. That's terrible. Being fired just like that. She seemed almost as shocked as if it had happened to her. Looking at her again, I realized she was a very beautiful woman. It's my fault. I'm so sorry. You got fired because you helped me. It's fine. I'm just a regular salesman, but I did what anyone would do. My words seemed to surprise her. It's not just something anyone would do at all. It's such a noble act. I'm sorry for eavesdropping. But is this Michael you mentioned, the sales manager at ABC Trading Company? Yes, that's correct. It's ABC Trading Company, which is close to here. Oh, my name is Daniel, and I was a salesman there, but, well. Not knowing what to say, I laughed self-deprecatingly, though I was actually shocked inside. It's absurd that someone like you would be fired. She seemed to be indignant. I truly wanted to learn more about sales at my current company. Being fired without having gained anything from the experience, except for being burdened with menial tasks, felt unjust. After thinking for a moment, she said, "May I make a call?" "Yes, of course, if you'd like. I can accompany you to the hospital afterwards." I also suggested the hospital to the other male student, but he said he was fine and left. If he says he's okay, then there's nothing more I can do. I made sure to tell him to go to the hospital immediately if anything seemed off. Even if you're not a doctor, you can't just ignore someone injured in front of you. Thank you very much for your kindness. She thanked me politely, smiling. Seeing her smile, I felt assured that I hadn't done anything wrong. The woman who had been on the phone suddenly turned to me and said, "Would you mind speaking to my father?" "Your father? Sure, I can do that," I said as I took the phone from her. "Hello. Daniel. Thank you for helping my daughter, Sarah." I heard a deep male voice on the line. "No, I just happened to pass by. I was just about to take her to the hospital." "Thank you so much. I've arranged for a car, so please get in." A car. Just as I muttered that, 10 black luxury cars pulled up to the curb. "Daniel, please, come this way." Urged by her, I got into a luxury car for the first time in my life. I remember when I was playing in the park with my brother as a child, and he collapsed without me noticing. As a young child, not knowing what to do, I panicked. At that moment, a woman rushed over to help. "Are you okay, little one? Is this your big brother?" she had asked. When I nodded, she said, "Let's move your brother to a cool shade. It's all right. He's probably suffering from heat stroke." so cooling him down should help. The woman swiftly attended to my brother and even called for an ambulance. She explained everything to the paramedics and accompanied us in the ambulance. By the time my brother woke up and I explained what happened, our parents had arrived at the hospital and the woman had already left. Later, when my family went to her house to thank her, she said, "I'm neither a nurse nor a paramedic, just an ordinary person. I happened to see your brother collapse and did what anyone would do." Inspired by her spirit, I decided I wanted to help those in need or seeking help. Lost in these thoughts, the car, which I had boarded without understanding the situation, arrived at the company I work for. The very company from which I had just been fired. As I got out of the car, Michael came storming out with a furious look, as if he was about to pounce on me. "What have you done? What do you mean?" Michael was trembling visibly. Though angry, he lacked his usual air of condescension and superiority. As I stood there bewildered, I noticed a man approaching from behind Michael. He was a dignified figure clad in an expensive-looking suit. He looked familiar. Michael, unaware of the man, continued to confront me. "It's all because of you, But Sarah's single remark halted Michael's advance. "Dad." At this, Michael slowly turned around. And then, he began to tremble violently. "Sarah, are you all right? Are you injured?" "Yes, I'm fine, thanks to Daniel here." "Daniel, thank you so much." "No, please, just make sure to go to the hospital if anything comes up." After thanking me again, Sarah headed towards the company's reception area. After seeing Sarah's off, I turned back to the man. I finally remembered. I've been working at this company for 2 years. I hadn't interacted with him much, only seeing his picture on the company website, so I hadn't recognized him. "You're President Miller's daughter, aren't you?" Turns out, Sarah's father was the president of a major client company. After seeing the president of the client company, Michael, who had been silent with a pale face, nervously began to speak. President Miller, about this incident. According to Sarah, you told Daniel he was incompetent and fired, didn't you?" "Well, that's because Daniel said he was going to be late. On the day of an important presentation with clients like yourself, President Miller. I thought it was highly irresponsible." Michael explained in a voice that was barely audible, almost disappearing. "So you're saying it's okay to leave my injured daughter unattended?" "No, that's not what I meant." As Michael flistered, President Miller continued in a low, cold voice. "So if you were in Daniel's position, you would have ignored my daughter and just gone to work and carried out the presentation, is that it?" "Well," Michael faltered, his face turning pale. "If one can ignore an injured person right in front of them, they are not worthy of respect as a human being. A presentation recommended by such a person is out of the question," President Miller said firmly. Michael looked like he might collapse at any moment as he staggered backward. "Michael, I've heard you're close with the HR department, but I don't think you have the authority to make personal decisions. The final decision lies with the HR department and the president of this company. Don't get too full of yourself just because you're the head of the sales department. Daniel will not be fired." President Miller spoke with a commanding tone. Michael, looking as though he might crumble, fled the scene. "President Miller, why?" Still in shock, I asked President Miller. After receiving a call from Sarah, I was hesitant to intervene in another company's affairs, but I made some inquiries into the sales department. What I found was appalling. He's been doing as he pleases for quite some time. There's no way you could be fired. Please continue to bring smiles to many people in this company. With that, President Miller smiled kindly. His smile resembled Sarah's. "Thank you very much. I look forward to continuing to work with you." I expressed my gratitude. Thus, I was spared from being fired. Following this incident, a departmental reform was carried out by the President's orders. I was appointed to the position of section chief, and Michael, who had incurred the wrath of President Miller, was transferred to a subsidiary in a remote area. It was, in essence, a demotion. I heard through the grapevine that he was leading a gloomy life, completely disregarding his previous career. Colleagues who had been intimidated by Michael were relieved, and relations with colleagues from other departments and clients improved. I dedicated myself to my work, making meaningful contributions both inside and outside the company. Daniel, are you available right now? Yeah, what's up? Matthew approached me. A client called with a concern. Got it, put them through to me. Sorry to bother you when you're busy. I'm really glad that we've come to have such casual conversations. With Michael gone, the atmosphere in our department has improved significantly. Everyone is working more freely, with a healthy sense of tension. It's an environment where even small concerns can be shared. I believe these small accumulations are key to maintaining good relationships with our clients. Sarah was taken to the hospital for a checkup just to be safe, and thankfully, everything was normal. Recently, as a gesture of gratitude, President Miller invited me out for a meal, and we went to a high-end seafood restaurant. Dining with President Miller was quite nerve-wracking, but Sarah was there too, sharing various stories, which made for an enjoyable time. If I had gone to work as usual that day and attended the presentation, I might not have been there to help. Thinking about it, oversleeping that day might have been a stroke of luck. I'm really glad I was able to help someone in need at that moment. Being able to assist others, even in unexpected situations, made me incredibly happy. I want to continue learning and gaining more experience to bring smiles to people's faces. I plan to continue my career in sales. Seeing your face after such a long time, I'm reminded again of how unpleasant you are. At the 40-year reunion of our elementary school class, I was told this by Emily, a classmate known for her beauty but not her kindness. I don't want to hear that from you, I thought to myself, feeling strongly about it. And then Emily said something like this. Weren't you the one who couldn't get into college right after high school? Maybe you just have a high school diploma. I always thought you had no future prospects since our elementary school days, and it turns out I was right. You probably don't make much with just a high school diploma, and your family's poor too. How pitiful. With that kind of background, you'll probably never get married, let alone have a girlfriend. Your age probably equals your years without a girlfriend, right? Hit the nail on the head, didn't I? My husband, on the other hand, is a highly educated man working for a major corporation, a far cry from you. We've always lived in different worlds. My husband is about to become a manager, given his capabilities. He might even become the president in another 5 years. I couldn't help but admire how she could look down on someone and brag so freely. She could probably become moderately popular as a comedian if she turned her bragging into a gag. Although I thought of retorting, I decided it was more mature not to engage at the same level. At that moment, a classmate named Olivia, who was sitting next to me, asked, "What company does your husband work for?" Emily, pleased to be asked, happily responded, "Hana. He works for Awesome Corporation. It's a very famous IT company nowadays. You must have heard of it." Olivia replied, "Yeah, I know it. It's a big company with about 8,000 employees. It's amazing he's becoming a manager there." Emily was a bit surprised and said, "That's right, Olivia, you're quite knowledgeable. But I don't think he'll become a manager." I interjected. Olivia nodded in agreement beside me. Emily frowned and said, What are you talking about? How rude. Are you just jealous? I'm starting to feel sorry for you. Just because you're undereducated and incompetent, you envy others' success." I replied, "No, I'm not jealous. I'm just stating facts. He won't become a manager, and what to do? Well, your husband will be in Brazil starting tomorrow. Emily was shocked and asked, what? We then revealed the shocking truth to her. My name is Kevin Turner. Though my parents were from the countryside, they moved to a redeveloped city in New York after getting married, where I was born and raised. Although it was a redeveloped city, our family lived in a small 2 LDK apartment. There were tower block residents nearby, and even if not tower block residents, there were apartments where the relatively affluent lived, standing at least 10 stories high, making our small apartment stand out in the area. I went to the local public elementary school, and as a child, it felt normal, but looking back, it seemed like many families were more affluent than ours, even for a public school. Did everyone enjoy your summer break? Let's share your summer memories one by one. I think it was in the 5th grade. On the first day back at school after summer break, our teacher, Mr. Harrison, asked us to present our summer activities starting from the front row. One boy said, "My family went to Paris. My parents have been there several times, but it was my first. I saw the real Eiffel Tower." And a girl said, "My family goes to our Hampton Beach house every summer. We went this year too, but I also wanted to travel abroad. So they took me to Bali. It was fun playing in the sea and eating delicious food. Their world was one where overseas trips and owning vacation homes were the norm. I went to my grandparents' house in Connecticut. I had fun swimming in the sea." I said, "It was a tradition to visit my maternal grandparents' house every year, and it was enjoyable because the sea was close by." However, after hearing my presentation, a female classmate commented, "Ow, swimming in the sea in Connecticut. Can you even swim there? I've only been in the sea in Hawaii and Guam, so I don't know. It sounds like something poor people would do." Emily Parker. She was the type of girl who always wanted to boast about being wealthy. Despite being a beautiful girl with good looks and figure, her personality was a problem. She would boast about living on the upper floors of a tower block residence, her parents driving a Mercedes, owning branded items, and always looking down on others. If she only boasted, it might still be somewhat cute, but she demeaned others. I thought to myself, "Here we go again," and responded coolly, feeling indifferent. That's not true. Walnut Beach is beautiful, and the seafood is delicious. It's convenient since it's a short trip from New York, so I highly recommend it. Some classmates showed interest and said, "Oh, really?" or "I've been there too," and the conversation became lively. Emily didn't look pleased. "I've been to the sea in Connecticut too. It's convenient and close by, and the food is delicious. Kevin, your relative's place must be nice. I'm jealous." Mr. Harrison said that, calming the excited class. Then it was Emily's turn to present. "I went on a trip in Europe, from England to France, then Germany, and finally Italy. The authentic Italian cuisine was the best. I spent almost the entire summer outside the US." She said this with a triumphant look. "I also saved up from my part-time job when I was a student and went on a trip to Italy. The food is delicious there, isn't it? I'd love to go again." Mr. Harrison wrapped up the session with that remark. Just as we were about to move on to the next person's presentation, Emily made a comment. "People who have only traveled domestically should probably not present. It's just making themselves miserable, right, Mr. Harrison?" The class fell silent for a moment. Mr. Harrison responded, "Thank you for your concern, Emily. But you see, I don't feel miserable for not having traveled abroad. There are many wonderful places within the US, too, and it's perfectly fine not to go on trips. As long as everyone is back safe and sound after summer break, that's all that matters to me." I agreed with Mr. Harrison's perspective. If there was one thing I disagreed with, it was that Emily wasn't really being considerate. She just wanted to brag. It's not about what makes you impressive. There are many ways to spend your time, but well, if someone said, I didn't go anywhere and just focused on studying every day. I might indeed say wow. Mr. Harrison added that, making all the students laugh. Except for Emily, who looked displeased. It seemed that Emily didn't get along well with her peers. She was often condescending and bragged too much, which made it unpleasant to be around her. At least that's what everyone felt. Yet, as a survival tactic, Emily tended to befriend kind-hearted girls or boys who didn't think too deeply about things. And she acted as if she were the queen. She would boast about inviting her usual entourage to her birthday parties, and look down on anyone outside her circle by saying, "You and I are on different levels, so I won't invite you to my party." Naturally, I was one of those she looked down upon. Not that I cared. Even if I were invited, I wouldn't want to go, but I kept that thought to myself to avoid any trouble. Emily announced she was going to a private middle school, so she didn't join us at the public middle school I went to. Given that it was an affluent area, more than half of the students from our elementary school went on to private middle schools, while the rest attended public schools. For those of us who went on to public schools, Emily's absence meant one less troublesome personality to deal with. Especially among the girls, relationships could be quite complicated. Although I, being a boy, didn't fully understand, whenever I heard about their issues, I often thought, girls have it tough. I often talked to 3 girls from the public school group, Sophia, Grace, and Olivia, and they shared their experiences. Grace, Olivia, and I have been close since kindergarten, but one day in 4th grade, Emily took a liking to Olivia and tried to hang out with her. Sophia shared, "Yay, and we wanted to keep hanging out with Olivia as usual, so we invited her to play after school, but Emily threatened us, saying, 'If you invite Olivia, I'll spread nasty rumors about you. My relative is a detective, so I can find out everything about your families and make up stories.'" Grace added, "On the day I was supposed to hang out with Sophia and Grace, Emily wanted to join, and when I suggested we all play together, she said, 'If you don't reject Sophia and Grace, I'll spread bad rumors about them.' That was troubling." Olivia continued, "Hearing about the girls' troubles, I remember thinking, well, that's way too complicated." And with Emily attending a different middle school, they were relieved to be able to hang out without any issues. Surprisingly, I ran into Emily sooner than expected. "Hut, Emily." It was during our high school entrance ceremony. While checking my class on the list posted near the entrance, I saw Emily Parker in the same class. Hoping it was just someone with the same name, my wishful thinking was dashed when I saw her in person. She was still strikingly beautiful but had a distinctly sharp look about her. Upon seeing me, she also muttered, "Ooh," in the classroom. Perhaps because we hadn't seen each other for 3 years in middle school, there was a certain awkwardness. I knew Emily had gone to a private middle school, but I hadn't paid attention to which one, a careless oversight. As a 6th grade boy, I had no interest in which private middle schools my classmates were attending. As for me, I didn't do well on the public high school entrance exams and ended up at a private high school as a safety option. Little did I expect to find Emily there. Emily, now an internal student, resumed her queenly behavior, surrounding herself with gentle students just like an elementary school. For a moment, I thought, this is hell. But then I figured, as a boy, I could avoid getting involved in any female drama by keeping my distance. Fortunately, I was able to focus on tennis and not worry too much about Emily, making my high school life quite bearable. Unlike in elementary school, she didn't overtly try to dominate or belittle others during class presentations, showing some maturity, I supposed. However, Emily started to encroach on my life in my 2nd year of high school. A friend from my tennis activities, Nathan, whom I got along with well, started dating Emily. Initially, when Nathan told me I had a girlfriend, I genuinely congratulated him, but my face turned pale when I heard her name. Wait, Why, Emily? I almost blurted out, but decided it wasn't right to speak ill of a friend's girlfriend, so I refrained from saying anything unnecessary. Nathan was academically excellent, athletically gifted, had a great personality, was good-looking, and on top of that, came from a wealthy family. Well, being a private high school, there were many students from affluent families. Both of Nathan's parents were doctors. His oldest brother was a lawyer. His sister, a university student, was studying abroad. And they lived in an area in New York known for its celebrity residents. I immediately understood that Emily was only interested in Nathan for his impressive credentials. I had overheard her saying to a friend in the hallway, "I would never date someone who is incompetent and poor. On the contrary, I don't mind anyone as long as they are rich and have a high status." I was close to Nathan because he was such a nice guy. I couldn't stand the thought of my dear friend being taken advantage of by a woman who used men for her own gain. So, I took the opportunity to tell Emily clearly, "Don't you dare use Nathan for your own greedy ambitions." Of course, she didn't take it well and responded, "Coming from an incompetent poor person like you, it's not convincing. Are you just jealous?" Her condescending attitude was unchanged. Nathan was being dragged around by Emily, paying for dates and meals, and even being told to take time off from his extracurricular activities and part-time job for her. Sure, Nathan's family was wealthy, but he wasn't the type to rely on that. He worked part-time jobs in his spare time to earn his own spending money. Seeing Nathan becoming increasingly exhausted, I suggested maybe it's okay to break up with her, but Nathan, being kind-hearted, felt that would be wrong and ended up pressuring himself. Eventually, Nathan started to fall ill frequently and began missing school. I thought to myself, I knew it, and frequently messaged Nathan, who was absent from school, to check if he was okay. To my surprise, I received a message from him saying, "She broke up with me." I felt relieved when I read that. The next day, Emily was telling her friends, "I broke up with him because it's so uncool to have a boyfriend who doesn't come to school." I was disappointed by her terrible behavior. "You're the reason Nathan became ill." I was shaking with anger. But I figured out arguing with her would be pointless, as she would only say, "Coming from an incompetent poor person like you, it's not convincing," so I decided to stay away from her. Afterwards, Nathan's health improved, and he was able to return to his extracurricular activities and part-time jobs. Emily, on the other hand, was already scouting for her next high-spec handsome man and had targeted another boy, while others started to be wary of her. Unfortunately, some boys still fell prey to her. I made sure to keep my distance from Emily. Well, not being a wealthy handsome man, I wasn't her target anyway, and quietly went about my school life. Time passed. I hadn't seen Emily since graduation, and now I was 40 years old. When I heard that a reunion for our elementary school was being organized to mark our 40th birthdays, I decided to attend, hoping to see some old friends. At the reunion venue, I saw friends who had clearly aged into uncles, and we laughed about our thinning hair and graying locks. Some classmates looked much younger than their age, and it was interesting to see everyone with traces of their younger selves. Many had families and children, while some had decided never to marry. There were also those who had been through one or more divorces, showing the diverse paths life can take. After chatting with the guys for a while, I happened to talk with Sophia, Grace, and Olivia. Suddenly, Sophia said with a puzzled look, "No way, is that Emily?" Grace added with a grimace, "It's true. Despite being disliked, she came to the reunion." Olivia suggested, "Well, we don't know what she's like now. Maybe she wanted to see everyone." Then Emily, having spotted us, approached. "Hey, long time no see, Olivia, and who were those other two again? You're so forgettable I've forgotten your names," Emily said to Sophia and Grace. Sophia and Grace were visibly annoyed. As for me, she completely ignored me. I had hoped she might have become a bit kinder, but it seems my hope was in vain. That's a rude thing to say, isn't it? There's nothing to fear at a reunion that's just for one day. I decided to speak my mind to Emily and said to her, "Seeing your face after such a long time, I'm reminded again of how unpleasant you are." Emily responded with the same line. Of course, I thought to myself, I don't want to hear that from you. Then Emily shifted her target from belittling Sophia and Grace to me and said, "Weren't you the one who couldn't get into college straight out of high school? Maybe you just have a high school diploma. I always thought you had no future prospects since our elementary school days, and it turns out I was right. You probably don't make much with just a high school diploma, and your family's poor too. How pitiful. With that kind of background, you'll probably never get married, let alone have a girlfriend. Your age probably equals your years without a girlfriend, right? Hit the nail on the head, didn't I? My husband, on the other hand, is a highly educated man working for a major corporation, a far cry from you. We've always lived in different worlds. My husband is about to become a manager, given his capabilities. He might even become the president in another 5 years." I was amazed at how she could so freely look down on someone and brag about herself. I thought she might become moderately popular as a comedian if she turned her bragging into a gag. Although I thought of retorting, I decided it was more mature not to engage at the same level. At that moment, Olivia asked, "What company does your husband work for?" Emily, pleased to be asked, happily responded, "Haha, he works for Awesome Corporation. It's a very famous IT company nowadays. You must have heard of it." Olivia replied, "Yeah, I know it. It's a big company with about 8,000 employees. It's amazing he's becoming a manager there." Emily was a bit surprised and said, "That's right, Olivia, you're quite knowledgeable. But I don't think he'll become a manager." I interjected. Olivia nodded in agreement beside me. Emily frowned and said, "Oh, what are you talking about? How rude. Are you just jealous? I'm starting to feel sorry for you. Just because you're undereducated and incompetent, you envy others' success." I replied, "No, I'm not jealous. I'm just stating facts. He won't become a manager, and what to do? Well, your husband will be in Brazil starting tomorrow." Emily was dumbfounded and said, "Huh?" before she started giggling. "Are you out of your mind from desperation? What kind of president talk is that? It's a funny joke, I'll give you that." Continuing to laugh, Emily found the situation amusing. I then pulled out my business card holder at that moment. No, I'm not making a joke to amuse you. I'm serious," I said as I handed Emily my business card. On the card was written, "Awesome Corporation, President and CEO, Kevin Turner." "What? Why do you have my husband's company's president's business card?" Emily exclaimed loudly. I said, "Why? Because it's my business card, obviously." Emily then said, "Kevin Turner, but your name is Kevin Carter, isn't it?" "Ah, my bad. You see, when I was in high school, my parents got divorced. I didn't want to change my last name from Carter, but after graduating high school, I took my mother's surname and became Turner," I explained. "Is that even passable?" Emily was in disbelief, murmuring, "So that's why. I thought you might have seen the name of the president of your husband's company at least once, but with a different surname. You wouldn't recognize it. My apologies," I said cheerfully. Emily still looked down on me. It's obvious I wouldn't dream of someone low-educated, incompetent, and low-spec like you being the president of my husband's company. "Maybe it's time to stop, Emily." Olivia, losing her patience, finally spoke up. "I always thought you were just lonely and seeking attention, which is why you put others down and boasted about yourself. Even when everyone disliked you, I didn't abandon you, but we're 40 now. If you can't act like a grown-up, You might end up leading a lonely life. I can't tolerate being treated badly anymore. I've reached my limit." Olivia spoke as if releasing something that had been building up inside her. "Why? I wanted to be friends with you, so I never spoke ill of you. I didn't say anything bad about you today either. So what bad things are you talking about? What limit?" Emily retorted. Olivia answered, "You didn't speak ill of me, but you insulted my dear husband, and you looked down on my important friends." Olivia responded in that manner. "Husband?" Emily asked, surprised. "Yes. Do you think I would tolerate someone calling my beloved husband low-educated, incompetent, and low-spec? I would never forgive that." Olivia, usually calm, spoke with a trembling voice filled with anger. "Thank you, Olivia." I embraced Olivia's shoulder. "We're married. We kept in touch occasionally after graduation, then started dating, and eventually got married. I've told our close classmates, but I guess I never mentioned it to you. And yeah, I didn't get into college straight out of high school, but Nathan and I started a company during our gap year, and it took off. Nathan's now the vice president of my company. As for your husband, Daniel, when it was left to the HR department, they unfortunately hired someone problematic. High education doesn't necessarily mean high performance. He's an employee that's been causing trouble for his colleagues. It's not that we want to fire him, but we need manpower in our Brazil branch, so we're sending him there. Are you planning to accompany him? Or is it going to be a long-distance marriage for you, or, like with Nathan, will you end things when it becomes inconvenient for you?" I conveyed this to Emily. Emily stood trembling, unable to utter a word. I thought she'd be shocked, but it's not like I said he was fired, and the Brazil branch offers plenty of opportunities, so it's not all bad. After pondering for a bit, Emily said in a suddenly meek tone, "I'm sorry. It was wrong of me to behave rudely without noticing you were President Turner. Please, don't say things like that and consider promoting my husband to manager." At this, even Sophia, who was listening in, exploded, "Hey, enough already. You flip your stance just because you're in a tight spot, and now you're even asking for a promotion after all the disdain. You're way too opportunistic." "I didn't mean it like that," Emily replied. "I'm only positioning my employees where they're most suited, regardless of what you say," I firmly told Emily, who then quietly left our circle, looking dejected. She mingled with some classmates for a bit at the reunion, but left early. In fact, I had already discussed the transfer to the Brazil branch with Daniel, who was considering it and hadn't decided on the date yet. Daniel was actually open to the idea of an overseas assignment, but was conflicted about his family situation, whether to go alone or bring his wife. Or, I heard this from Daniel's superior. When I set off to Brazil tomorrow, it was genuine, and with the company needing him there, it was about time for him to make a decision. Maybe Emily would discuss this with Daniel after returning from the reunion. The next day at work, I asked Daniel's department manager, Alex, about his situation. Alex revealed, "Actually, Mr. Turner, Daniel came in this morning and said, I've decided to leave my wife and take the assignment in Brazil. I'm ready to go anytime." "All right, then proceed with his transfer arrangements," I instructed Alex. I had suspected it. Emily's selfish nature made it highly unlikely she'd accompany him to Brazil. Apparently, Daniel is getting a divorce from his wife, I was told. I froze for a moment. Had Emily refused to stay with a husband not promoted to manager and heading for an overseas assignment? It seemed likely. About a week passed. Daniel had left for Brazil to start his new role at the branch. Although I rarely spoke directly to him, being a non-managerial employee among 8,000 others, knowing he was Emily's husband had made me more aware of him. Had the divorce gone through? Or was it just a marital spat? If they were divorced, I hoped he'd submit a change in personal details for company records, among other administrative concerns. Then, an internal call from the reception came through. A lady insists on speaking with you, Mr. Turner. She says she's an old classmate of yours. The receptionist said, adding, she's quite beautiful. My wife is beautiful too, but the receptionist would recognize her, so this remark meant. It clicked. It must be Emily. I instructed, send her to the reception room, and hurried over. As expected, Emily was there, glaring at me the moment she saw me. You must have said something. What are you going to do about this? She demanded, clearly angry with me. Hold on, what are you talking about? I had informed Daniel about the Brazil transfer before I mentioned it to you, and he had agreed to it. Are you upset about the transfer? Our company policy includes overseas assignments, as stated in the employment contract. I'm sorry if this disrupts your marital life, but... Before I could finish, Emily interjected, it's not about the transfer. The night of the reunion, Daniel came to me, looking distressed, and asked for a divorce. You must have told him all sorts of things about me from the past. How could you? Why would I? I only suggested the transfer, and he accepted it positively. I've never discussed your past with him. I've never even spoken directly with him. With 8,000 employees, I don't get the chance to talk to non-managerial staff. He must have been considering divorce for a while. I didn't even know Daniel was your husband until the reunion. So the divorce has nothing to do with me. Emily began to cry. What did I do to deserve this? Sure, I said it's embarrassing to be the wife of a man who won't get promoted and has no benefits. But that was just my opinion. I never said I wanted a divorce. So why would he bring it up? Emily sobbed. That's exactly why, Emily, I told her. Emily retorted, fine. Everyone just wants me to be miserable, and stormed out of the reception room. I attempted to follow her, but she ran out of the company building, so I gave up. I made sure to explain things clearly to the receptionist, who was grinning, to avoid any strange misunderstandings. Half a year passed, and I gradually learned more about Emily and Daniel. According to employees from Daniel's department at the New York branch, he had been troubled by his wife's whims and considering divorce for quite some time. Daniel, a highly educated man with much pride, was worn out and lacked the spirited demeanor he once had due to being under his wife's thumb, as unanimously described by his colleagues. However, in the end, Daniel and Emily did not divorce. Surprisingly, Emily went to Brazil and lived with him. This information came from my wife, Olivia. Olivia and Emily hadn't been in touch until the reunion, but it seemed Emily had reached out to Olivia for life advice. Feeling lost after Daniel suggested divorce, Emily sought Olivia's help. Olivia listened and pointed out Emily's past missteps, letting Emily to reflect on her lack of consideration for others. Olivia told me, I felt Emily wanted to change for the first time because she truly loves Daniel. I think her personality was shaped by a lack of affection in her childhood due to her busy parents. But she seems happy to have a family with Daniel and wants to change for the better to stay with him. Emily went to Brazil ahead of Daniel, apologized, and they reconciled. I see, Emily has matured, facing her relationship seriously. They're doing well as a couple, I remarked. Don't be so patronizing. Are we doing well as a couple? Have you reflected on your flaws? Olivia teased, making me fluster. Wait, sorry. Have I caused trouble for you with my faults? Tell me, I'll change, I hurriedly said. Olivia reassured, you don't have any faults, Kevin, you're perfect. That can't be right, I protested, flustered. I must have flaws, but Olivia's kindness likely overlooks them. I reminded myself not to become complacent or arrogant. Look, Emily sent a message and a photo. Check out this picture. Olivia showed me her phone, displaying a smiling Emily and Daniel together. The message read, Daniel and I went to see Rio's carnival. They look happy together, I commented. Olivia laughed, Kevin, happy together sounds so outdated. Don't say that in front of the younger employees, okay? Her teasing was filled with affection. "It's okay, we're at home. We're happy together too, right, Olivia?" Smiling, Olivia replied, "Yes, we won't lose to them," and made a heart shape with her hands, laughing.